You held it up to the light. You turned it slowly in your fingers, and the paint, that deep, impossible, metallic paint that looked like someone had dipped a real car in liquid candy, shifted color as the light moved across it. Blue to purple, green to gold, red to something that did not have a name but made your chest tight because nothing you had ever owned looked like that. It was 1968. You were 10 years old, and the toy car in your hand was the most beautiful thing you had ever seen. It was called a Hot Wheel. And within a year, the version you were holding would become almost impossible to find because you were about to destroy it. Before we dive in, hit subscribe and drop a comment letting us know where you're watching from. The paint had a name, Spectraflame. It was not regular paint. It was not the flat enamel that Matchbox used on their cars, the dull, solid colors that looked like house paint on a toy. Spectraflame was a transparent metallic lacquer applied directly to the polished zinc alloy body of the car. The bare metal underneath showed through the color, and the result was a finish that shimmered and shifted in a way that no toy had ever shimmered before. You could hold it under a lamp and tilt it 1 degree, and the color changed. You could hold it in sunlight, and the thing looked like it was on fire. There were 16 colors: antifreeze, creamy pink, hot pink, ice blue, light blue, aqua, olive, apple green, light green, lime, gold, copper, brown, orange, red, purple. 16 colors that sounded like the names of dreams, not the names of paint. And each one made the car in your hand look like something from a world where everything was faster and brighter and more alive than the world you actually lived in. And the car was fast. Unbelievably, absurdly, unreasonably fast. Matchbox cars rolled like wooden blocks on sandpaper. You pushed them across the floor and they stopped after 2 feet. Hot Wheels rolled like they were on ice. You gave one a flick with your finger and it shot across the kitchen linoleum and disappeared under the refrigerator, and your mother said a word she did not usually say. The secret was in the axle, a thin, low-friction wire that created almost no drag. And the wheels had a torsion-bar suspension made from piano wire, actual piano wire, that flexed when the car went over bumps. Piano wire. In a toy that cost 69 cents. That is the kind of detail that defined what Hot Wheels was in 1968, and it is the kind of detail that no longer exists in anything that carries the name today. The man who designed the first Hot Wheels was not a toy designer. His name was Harry Bradley, and he was an automobile designer at General Motors. He had worked on real cars, full-size, steel, gasoline-powered cars that adults drove on highways. And then one day he was hired by Mattel to design toy cars, and instead of making miniature copies of real vehicles, the way Matchbox did, he did something that nobody in the toy industry had ever done. He designed toy cars the way a California hot rod builder would design them. Chopped roofs, raked windshields, mag wheels, chrome exhausts, custom paint jobs that did not exist on any production car. The first car he designed was the custom Camaro. It looked like something that had been built in a garage in Hawthorne by a man with grease under his fingernails and a dream that did not fit inside a factory specification sheet. That was the point. Hot Wheels were not copies of real cars. They were copies of what a 10-year-old boy imagined a real car should look like. The first 16 models, the Sweet 16, were released in 1968, and they changed everything. The custom Camaro, the custom Cougar, the custom Barracuda, the custom Firebird, the custom Mustang, the custom Corvette, the Diora, a surfboard carrying truck with no conventional doors that had actually been built as a real show car by the Alexander brothers in Detroit. The Silhouette, the Fleet Side, the custom Eldorado, the custom T-Bird, the custom Volkswagen, the Ford J-Car, the Beatnik Bandit, a name that could only have been invented in California in 1968, the Hot Heap, the Python, 16 cars, 16 designs, 16 Spectraflame paint jobs, 69 cents each. and each one rolled faster and looked better than anything Matchbox had ever put on a shelf. Within 1 year, Hot Wheels had taken a massive portion of Matchbox's market share. The British company that had owned the die-cast car market for 15 years, Lesney Products, based in London, the company that had been the king, was suddenly fighting for its life against 16 cars from California with piano wire suspension and paint that looked like it belonged on a spaceship. Matchbox tried to catch up. They made their cars faster. They added new designs. But they could not copy Spectraflame because Mattel had patented it. And they could not copy the attitude because the attitude came from California custom car culture, and that culture did not exist in a factory in East London. Matchbox held on for another 14 years. Then Lesney went bankrupt in 1982. The king of die-cast cars was dethroned by 16 cars that cost 69 cents each. You did not know any of this. You were 10. All you knew was that the car in your hand was the fastest thing on the kitchen floor and the most beautiful thing in your pocket. You carried it to school. You raced it on your desk when the teacher was not looking. You lined up 6 of them on the windowsill in your bedroom and looked at them before you went to sleep. The Spectraflame paint catching the light from the hallway. 6 tiny cars glowing like jewels on a shelf. You had a favorite. You always had a favorite, the one you picked up first, the one you put in your pocket on Saturday morning before you went outside, the one you would never trade no matter what your friend offered. You remember the color. You are thinking of it right now. The orange track changed everything. The supercharger set came with 2 battery-powered boosters, a loop, and yards of bright orange plastic track that you clamped to the edge of a table or a shelf or a stack of books. You fed the car into the track, it hit the booster, and it flew around the loop, through the straightaway, off the end and into the wall or the couch or your sister's ankle. The sound, that whirring hum of the booster wheels spinning and the click of the car launching was the soundtrack of Saturday morning in 1969. You built tracks that went from the top of the staircase to the bottom. You built tracks that went from the dresser across the bed to the desk. You taped tracks to the wall to see if the car could make a vertical loop. It could not. You tried anyway. You raced them against your friends, not on the orange track, on the sidewalk, on the driveway, on the kitchen floor. You drew a starting line in chalk, and each boy put his car behind the line, and someone said, "Go," and you flicked your car with your index finger, and it shot across the concrete, and the first one to hit the curb won. Or the first one to reach the crack in the sidewalk. Or the first one to disappear under the porch. You argued about who won. You always argued about who won, and then you raced again. You launched them off ramps made of textbooks and rulers. You sent them down the slide at the playground and watched them fly off the end and land on the asphalt, and you picked them up, and the Spectraflame finish had a scratch on it, and you did not care because there would be more. There would always be more. 69 cents, your allowance covered it. Your grandmother slipped you $1 and you bought one and had 31 cents left for a candy bar, and you destroyed them. Not on purpose, not with malice. You destroyed them the way boys destroy everything they love, by using them, by playing with them, by dragging them across concrete driveways, by launching them off the porch railing, by leaving them in the rain, by burying them in the sandbox, by running over them with your bicycle, by losing them under the couch, behind the radiator, in the dirt, in the street, in the back seat of your father's car, where they rolled under the seat and stayed there for 3 years until the car was traded in and the dealer found 6 Hot Wheels under the seat and threw them in the trash. You destroyed them because they were 69 cents and your mother would buy you another one at the drugstore next Tuesday. Every single one of those cars, the ones you scratched, the ones you lost, The ones your mother vacuumed up, the ones the dealer threw away, is now worth money. Real money. The custom Camaro you dragged across the driveway until the Spectraflame was gone and the bare metal showed through would be worth $200 today if you had left it in the package. The Diora your friend traded you for 3 baseball cards would be worth $400. And the car you never had, the one that almost nobody had, a prototype called the rear-loading Beach Bomb, a Volkswagen bus designed to carry 2 surfboards in the back in a color called Hot Pink that Mattel only made a handful of before they redesigned the car. That car sold at auction for $175,000. $175,000 for a toy car that cost 69 cents in 1969. That is not a typo. That is what happens when you take something beautiful, make it for 2 years, and then change everything about it. Because they changed it not all at once, gradually, the way you change something when you are trying to save money and hoping nobody will notice. In 1971, they introduced enamel paint on some models, flat, opaque, dull, not Spectraflame. The first time you saw an enamel Hot Wheel next to a Spectraflame Hot Wheel, you knew you did not have the vocabulary for it. You were 12, but you knew something was wrong. The new car looked dead next to the old one. The old one shimmered. The new one just sat there. Same shape, same brand, different soul. By 1973, Spectraflame was gone completely. Every car in the line was now painted with flat enamel, the same kind of paint that Matchbox used. The magic finish that shimmered in the light, the finish that made you hold the car up and turn it slowly to watch the color shift, was replaced by a finish that looked like every other toy car in every other store. The men at Mattel had done the math. Spectraflame cost more. Enamel cost less. The kids would not notice, except the kids noticed. Every kid who had ever held a Spectraflame up to the light noticed. They just could not do anything about it because they were 13 and nobody asked a 13-year-old about paint technology. In 1977, the Redline tires disappeared. The signature red stripe on the wheel that told you this car was different, this car was special, this car was a Hot Wheel, and not just another die-cast car from the toy aisle. Gone. Replaced by plain black wheels that looked like every other wheel on every other car. And with the Redline went the last visible link to 1968. You could no longer look at a Hot Wheel on the shelf and see the car you fell in love with. The color was different. The wheels were different. The weight was different, lighter now because the metal was thinner. The piano wire suspension got cheaper, then simpler, then irrelevant, and the production moved. From Hawthorne, California, 20 minutes from the beach, 20 minutes from the custom car shops that inspired every design, to Hong Kong, then to Malaysia, then to Thailand, then to China. The car that Harry Bradley designed on his drafting table in Hawthorne, looking out a window at the California sun, was now being stamped out in a factory 9,000 miles away by workers who had never seen a custom Camaro at a drive-in on a Friday night. The name stayed the same. The package stayed similar. The orange track still worked. But the car in the blister pack was not the car you held up to the light in 1968. It was not the car that shimmered. It was not the car that rolled like it was on ice. It was not the car that a GM designer shaped with the soul of a California hot rod builder. It was a toy car, a fine toy car, a toy car that millions of children enjoy today, but it was not what it was. And every man who held a Spectraflame Redline up to the light in 1968 knows the difference. He knows it the way you know the difference between a handwritten letter and a text message. The information is the same, The feeling is not. There are men right now, men your age, men who grew up on the same streets you did, men who scraped the Spectraflame off a custom Camaro on a driveway in 1969, who have spent 20, 30, 40 years quietly buying back the cars they lost, one car at a time, from swap meets in high school gymnasiums, from garage sales on Saturday mornings where they arrive at 6 and scan the folding tables before anyone else gets there. From eBay listings they check every night before bed. From collector shows where they walk the aisles slowly with a magnifying glass, checking for original paint, checking for the red stripe on the tires, checking for the Hong Kong stamp on the base that means it is a first-year production car from the factory that Harry Bradley walked through in 1968. They open a small case lined with velvet, and inside are 12 cars, each one a Spectraflame Redline from 1968 or 1969, each one in the condition they wish theirs had survived in. They do not play with them. They do not race them on orange track. They do not flick them across the kitchen floor. They hold them up to the light. They turn them slowly in their fingers, and the paint shifts, blue to purple, green to gold, red to something that does not have a name, and for a moment they are 10 years old again, standing in the toy aisle at the Five and Dime, holding the most beautiful thing they have ever seen, not knowing that it will be gone in 3 years and worth a fortune in 50. The most expensive Hot Wheel ever sold was a rear-loading beach bomb, a Volkswagen microbus prototype painted in hot pink. Mattel made a small number of them before they realized the design was too narrow to work on the supercharger track. They redesigned it with a wider body and the surfboards on the side instead of the back. The handful of rear-loading prototypes that survived are the rarest Hot Wheels in existence. One sold at auction for $175,000. Another is estimated to be worth $300,000 for a toy car, for a prototype that was rejected, for something that was never supposed to leave the building. $175,000 for something that cost 69 cents, for something that you would have dragged across the driveway without thinking twice, for something that your mother would have swept off the kitchen floor and dropped in the junk drawer and forgotten about for 40 years. That is what was lost, not the car. The car is zinc and paint and piano wire. What was lost was the understanding that something beautiful was in your hand and that it would not be there forever. You had one. You know you had one. You can see the color. You can feel the weight. Heavier than the ones they make now, heavier because the metal was thicker and the paint was real and the axle was piano wire, and the whole thing was built by people who understood that a toy car should feel like something when you hold it in your hand. You can feel that weight right now just thinking about it, and somewhere under a couch, in a landfill, in the glove compartment of a 1972 Buick that was crushed and cubed 40 years ago, your Spectraflame Redline is still there, still shimmering, still waiting for the light.